Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Today we're going to be talking about modifying a tool that I love but hate just one thing about it. So let's get right into that on Tinker with Tools. So a couple weeks ago, I reviewed compact drills, and one of the ones that stood out as being one of the better ones was this from Milwaukee. This is their M18 compact drill that came out late last year, and it's an absolutely tiny drill. And overall, the performance may not jump to the top of the charts on paper, but I find that in practice, this really is an impressive drill and is right up there with the best compact drills there are. But there's one feature about it that stands out as just being a little bit subpar in my opinion, and that's going to be the chuck. Now, to be perfectly clear, the chuck on this is not inherently bad in its ability to grip. I find that it does that just fine, but it is a little bit slippery, and overall it's just not something I enjoy using. One thing we can do about that is we can go ahead and perform a chuck swap. Now, I want to be perfectly clear about a few things right up front. Number one, I have absolutely never done this. I'm not intending this as necessarily a tutorial, though I have done my research on what you're supposed to do. Number two, there is nothing inherently wrong about this drill. If you want to buy it, go ahead. I think it is a good drill, and I think the chuck holds onto the bits well. It's just that I want to change it and see if I can improve how I feel about it with a different chuck on it. Then the last one, I'm fairly certain this is going to void the warranty. I don't expect to be able to service this drill. Just be cautious if this is something you are going to do. Now, for the chuck swap, I purchased this aftermarket chuck from Rome off Amazon. It is a pricier chuck. The other thing is this chuck is not quite as short or compact. This one is going to make it about a 1/4 inch longer when everything is said and done. But I just want to go ahead and be upfront about those couple of things. So with that, let's start the process of taking the chuck off. And we got our failure point. The size of this chuck is different than the size of this chuck. Well, you only live once, right? Let's go ahead and try and take off the chuck from the M12 Milwaukee and see if that one fits. Milwaukee is going to fit. So we now have our upgraded Milwaukee M18 with a metal chuck that I actually care for. That definitely didn't go how I was planning it to. I expected just to be able to pop off the old chuck, possibly even have a hard time doing it, and then put on that new chuck and be done. The one thing that was quite surprising was how easy it was to get the chuck off. Now, I did go ahead and use a vise like you'll be able to see, where I could kind of lock down the drill and obviously have a little more leverage on it, but neither the action of breaking the screw loose inside the chuck or even breaking the chuck loose was all that difficult to accomplish. Now, clearly Olive has shown you that I was actually going to be putting on that chuck from Rome, but as soon as I tried to go ahead and put it on, I realized that it did have different threading than what's inside of this. I tried to find some information about what exactly the threading size is on this Milwaukee chuck, and honestly, I haven't found a lot of good information about it, so if you know it, please leave it down in the comments below. That Rome chuck was definitely not the right size, but that is no fault of Rome's. They have a selector on their website that allows you to drop down and select which tool you want, but unfortunately, these newer Milwaukee tools, especially the American models, are not included in that selector. So while I did pick one of the equivalent European options, it clearly was not the right one, and I did not receive a chuck that would go on this drill. So at that point, I could have just stopped making this video and said, okay, we didn't accomplish it, and you guys would have heard about it. But I was already into it, and I really wanted to see if it would transform how I felt about this drill, and it's one glaring flaw in my opinion. Instead, I did what any reasonable person would do. I took my M12 Gen 3 fuel hammer drill, pulled the chuck off that one to see if it would actually fit on there. As soon as I went and I tried to pop this one off, it also came off very easily. And as you can see, I have actually swapped them. They are compatible. And so now my M18 Compact is going to have the chuck from the new Gen 3 fuel hammer drill. And overall, it is a big improvement. I decided to go ahead and put this one back on here, but I don't want you to think that I've just basically taken what was a really good drill in the M12 fuel and made it worse, because I intentionally would have just purchased another duplicate Milwaukee chuck to go on here. But when I started shopping shopping around for prices online, one, finding specifically the one that would go on this was a little bit difficult, but two, those genuine Milwaukee chucks on Amazon were roughly $72, $73. I was able to pick up a replacement tool-only fuel hammer drill for $75. Have my mutated Gen 3 M12 with the bad check and actually just replace the tool altogether with a new version of it for roughly the same money. Now, when it comes down to it, does this make sense for most people? No, I really don't think it does. It doesn't make financial sense at all. When it's on sale, this is a $99 drill, and I spent another $75 plus tax to upgrade the chuck on it. Now, there are some lower cost chuck alternatives that do appear to be Milwaukee compatible on Amazon for as little as maybe $15, but I can't speak to the compatibility or the quality of those chucks. One thing that several of you pointed out is that they felt like they weren't going to be able to find a chuck that was going to be smaller. Well, I can report that this is actually 0.1 inches longer. I'm going to go ahead and claim that I now have the world's smallest Milwaukee drill. It is smaller than anything they've ever put out on M12. It was the smallest on M18, and I have just made it minutely shorter by putting a different chuck on it. And so I'm going to go ahead and call that a win. In terms of how it transformed the tool, it really did. I really do enjoy the tool more with the more premium chuck. Now, I get that Milwaukee wants to keep the cost down on this tool and keep separation between their more premium offerings, where you are incentivized almost to go up and get the more premium tools. For my case, I am going to go ahead and enjoy this drill a little bit more because it's got a nicer chuck on it. If you have any questions about how this was accomplished or what sort of problems I ran into in doing it, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. If you like this sort of content, go ahead and let me know. Maybe we can try and chuck swap some other stuff. As always, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I do appreciate all the support, and until next time, I'll catch you on Tinker with Tools.